You're listening to the Loida Lewis Podcast, hosted by Loida Nicolas Lewis. She's a trailblazing businesswoman, leader, philanthropist, and the widow of Reginald F. Lewis, the visionary leader who was the first African American to build $1 billion company. With unparalleled determination, Loida Lewis has not only excelled as a successful attorney, but also shaped a $1 billion empire. Following the untimely passing of her husband, Reginald F. Lewis, she took the helm of TLC Beatrice, carving her legacy as a successful business leader. Be inspired and learn from her as she shares her wisdom, the secrets to her success in both business, in love, and in life. Let's live, love, laugh, and learn. With your host, Miss Loida Lewis.
In this episode of the Loida Lewis Podcast, we take you to the Reginald F. Lewis Museum for a powerful fireside chat with Diana Lee and Lucian Stout, two people who knew Mr. Lewis best. Moderated by Miss Loida herself, this Season 3 finale reveals personal stories of love, legacy, and resilience. So sit back and listen as we honor the life and impact of Reginald F. Lewis right here on the Loida Lewis Podcast.
When I sent the invitation by email, and then I had a former associate attorney saying, my husband and I are coming, said, oh, this is good because of all those who have answered, she is one who was an associate in the law firm of Mr. Lewis, Lewis and Clarkson. So the first one I said, she should speak in our fireside chat because not too many people have seen him since he died in 1993. And then, of course, I'm going to be here with our house manager. He was hired by Mr. Lewis 1988 and has been with us ever since, Lucian Stout. Part of the fireside chat. So can I please call on Diana Lee? Please come. Yes. Thank you. If you notice very briefly, she and her husband were in that 20th anniversary.
Yes.
You see that?
Yes.
All right. You have first. Thank you. Thank you, Diana. Yes, very good. So maybe just give them a brief introduction of where you were born, your family background, brothers and sisters, your husband and your children. And then I'll ask you the next question is, how did you come to know Reginald F. Lewis, Reginald Francis Lewis? Okay, here is Diana Lee.
Hi, Diana. Well, I was born in New York City. My parents have just immigrated over from China, and my father came here as a teenager and was immediately drafted into World War II and got sent back to China. He was part of the Flying Tigers over there, if anybody has ever heard of that. And when he finally came back to the US, I was immediately born thereafter. So I'm a true New Yorker. I've always been in New York. I went to Queens College of the City University of New York, and I went to NYU Law School. I had four siblings. I have two sons. I'm very proud to say one of my sons is president of a museum also. He's president of the Museum of Chinese in America. And in Chinatown, in New York City. So if anybody wants to visit there, please tell me and I'll make the arrangements. And I've been an attorney for 50 years now.
Wonderful. So she is a New Yorker, and I just want to know, your father was not in law, and none in your family was a lawyer. So how did you choose to become a lawyer?
My father was a Chinese laundryman and operated a Chinese laundry, and that's what he did. And my mom worked first in a clothing factory when they had manufacturing in America, and she also worked in the laundry. So how did I become a lawyer? I had no idea what I wanted to become when I went to Queens College. Somehow I took a pre-law course, and the professor there, who ultimately became a judge, nominated me for the Outstanding Pre-Law Student of the Year. So I said, oh, maybe I should become a lawyer. So that's how I did it. I actually wanted to join the State Department. Back in those days, they told us women don't belong in the State Department. So there went that dream. So I decided I'll become a lawyer. I had no idea what lawyers did. There were no lawyers in the family. We had no contact with lawyers. But I was good at the pre-law course, so what the hell.
Very good. And so you became a lawyer, you passed the bar, I suppose? So what happened then after the bar?
Well, actually, I passed the bar after I became employed with Mr. Lewis. He didn't come actually. One of his partners came to NYU looking for, as part of the recruiting program, to try to find the lawyers for their firm. I was not good at getting a job because I was really not interested in representing corporations and stuff like that. And my response at interviews with big law firms was, well, what do you do for pro bono work? And they really didn't like that. So I think at the interview with, I think it was Josephine Thorpe, is her name. She mentioned that they were doing housing for the Urban Coalition, which was something that I was very interested in. So they offered me a job. By the time I got there, the firm had dissolved and only Reginald was left. And he was not doing housing. He was doing corporate law. So that's how I wound up doing corporate law with Reg as one of his first associates with the firm.
All right, so Diana Lee was the first associate, aside from Josephine Thorpe. So the first year of Mr. Lewis was funded by Urban Coalition to take care and funded the first year, but not the second year. There were 4 lawyers chosen by Urban Coalition: Murphy, Thorpe, and Lewis. Well, the first one really is Wallace, Murphy, Thorpe, and Lewis. Before the year was out, Fred Wallace stepped out. So it's Murphy, Thorpe, and Lewis. By the time that Diana came, Mr. Lewis was a little dissatisfied because he was the rainmaker. He brings all the money, but the money is divided into 3. So he thought it wasn't fair. So he bought them out, and he was always saying, what? I'm not going to buy them out. They didn't bring. Darling, just do it. Because why? I know that he will have trouble later on. So it became just Lewis and Clarkson, Charles Clarkson. So my first question is, when Charles Clarkson was interviewed, he said, Mr. Lewis was a hard taskmaster. So what is your personal experience being the first or the second law associate in Lewis and Clarkson?
I recall we had a lot of work, but I didn't really have the same relationship that Charles had with Reginald. And, one of the things was, Reg was a hard taskmaster. He would yell at you if he was upset about something you did. But strangely enough, he never really yelled at me. And later on, we analyzed it. It was because of Loida. Loida had him trained already. He didn't yell at Asian American women. Charles was always amazed by that. How come, he always yelled at me and he never yelled? And that was what we figured out.
And tell me, what kind of trainer did you receive under Lewis and Clarkson?
Strangely enough, I don't recall ever sitting down with Reg going through documents or the type of training you would get in a traditional large law firm. I realize now in looking at his bio that when he started his firm, he had actually only worked at Paul Weiss for 2 years. 2 years as a baby associate in the world of large law firms. But Reg was a kind of like figure it out yourself and do it. And that was terrific training because I love figuring out how to do things. I'm a real estate lawyer, and I represent mostly nonprofits. And even when my father passed away, I decided, let me figure out how to do his estate. And it was a lot of fun. I figured it out. So I think that was part of the training I got from Reg, that you could really figure things out yourself. And I think it was a wonderful example.
All right, guys, did you hear that? Especially the young people. When there is a problem, you figure it out. And if you cannot figure out, ask people. Don't be ashamed and say, they think I'm ignorant. No, they'll think you're smart, that you're asking the right questions. So never be scared of asking questions if you don't know it. Because if you're honest, the person in front of you will answer you truthfully. Okay? Now, what other lessons have you learned? Or what did you see with Mr. Lewis, with Reg?
I'm actually in Reg's book. If you look a page, I think when he was very disappointed with his first attempt at an acquisition of Almay. I remember that company because it made aluminum beach chairs. And I had that aluminum beach chair forever, I got a sample of that. And I was very surprised to see myself in the book telling him when he was down and depressed about that particular deal falling through, that I was the one who told him, they can't get away with that. Go and sue them or do something. And, I was impressed that he remembered that. The other thing I learned from Mr. Lewis was, I think I became somewhat entrepreneurial myself, even though I've been an attorney for 50 years. I did a little side stuff, and I think that was because of the influence of Reg. I actually didn't acquire. I obtained a license to start a radio station in Long Island. It's called B103. This was many, many years ago when a friend of mine came up to me and said, do you know any minority women who have a connection to Suffolk County? And I said, me. I have a house in Suffolk County. I wound up acquiring a license for a radio station, which we started after going through a contest with the FCC. And we sold, I think about 3-4 years later, for actually 12 times what we put into it. So I think that was an influence from Reg, I think, that it never occurred to me not to do it. I just, what the hell, let's do it. So that was one of the things I learned from Reg. Just go and follow your dream.
Follow your dream and do it. So that is a big lesson. When she talked about Almec deal, this was the deal that was buying in California a furniture, summer furniture. You put on the patio. And he worked on that for 18 months. Was able to get the daughter of the owner a job in New York. Christmas and New Year sends them flowers. And he got the deal, meaning the contract. But on the day of closing, the man, who was white, said, I guess, this is my own interpretation, didn't want to work for a black man. Why? Because in cases like that, the contract always says 3 years you will work for the company, and then you can go. So he said, that's what I think. On the day of closing, he started to tell a lie that Reg, Mr. Lewis, told him to take 2 books. One for IRS and one under the table. And that was a total lie. So he started, what? You, SOB? And then the other one said, you, FUCK. The deal is down the drain. So all his work of 18 months gone. And in his book, I didn't know this myself, he wrote this down that he was close to a nervous breakdown. So when Diana Lee came to him and said, "What? Let's sue the bastard." That gave yes, because that was defamation. And so because of that, the lawyer sued, and with the compensation that was arranged by the lawyer, we bought our first summer house in East Hampton.
Oh my God.
And so, thanks to your inspiration and your view to him, that's where Mr. Lewis healed. Because he was saying, how could I work so hard and fail? And so for all of those of you who try so hard to get the American dream and fail, don't give up. Because Mr. Lewis says, I'm pointing fingers to, not me. Oh, it's because of racism. But 3 fingers pointed at him. He said, I was not ready to get the deal. And so he said, well then, Reg, get ready. So for all of you who have experienced failure, all right, just find out, what did you do wrong? It's not, oh, because it's his fault. No, 3 fingers are pointing at you. Then, if you have that humility to know, you will get up and rise. Okay. Thank you, Diana Lee. Thank you. And now, when we were able to, he said the first deal that he did that was successful was McCall Potter Company. But she was there when the deal fell of Almen. All right. Now, in 1988, Mr. Lewis had already bought TLC Beatrice, the billion-dollar company, and a leveraged buyout. What does that mean? All borrowed money. OPM, other people's money. Of course, you have to put a down payment. But since he bought McCall Potter Company for 90-to-1 return, he had some money. And so when Mike Milken said, I'll help you buy a billion-dollar company, all borrowed money, you have to put something down. So Mr. Lewis put $15 million to buy a billion-dollar company for all borrowed money. And because we had something, we were able to move to Fifth Avenue, the first African-American on Fifth Avenue. Our chairman of the board is Lawrence Rockefeller. And so with that, I guess we started to live the life of the rich and famous. And he needed a butler. And at that time, the woman who was helping us iron in Broadview, a 25-room, mansion in Amagansett, and Rena said, oh, I have just the right man for you. And that is Lucian Stout. And here he is. Now, Lucian, since 1988, he's been with the family of the Lewis family. So, Lucian, can you just tell the audience where you were born, your background, and then when you came to the United States?
Thank you, Mrs. Lewis. I was born in the British Virgin Islands by a name of the family Stout. You go in the British Virgin Islands, you mention Stout. Everybody know.
It's a drink.
Like you say, yeah, but it's a name like if you say Kennedy here. That's what it sounds like in the British Virgin Islands when you say Stout.
Which country?
The British Virgin Islands, Tortola.
Tortola.
Okay, I will let you know, my uncle was the chief minister, the first chief minister. My father was the representative for the 2nd district. And now his grandson is the deputy governor. And my youngest sister was secretary to the premier. So that's why I'm trying to let you know the family is a name, like you said, Kennedy Johnson. It's well known in the British Virgin Islands. I moved here from since 76 from the Virgin Islands. Works in hotel from Florida to Montauk. And one day I came from breakfast and I turned on the TV and it said CNN. And it said, meet the richest black man in the world. I said, what? You always hear about the big movie stars, the baseball player, the basketball player. What our business black man, and I said, I can't sleep until I see him. And when they bring him on, there was an Oriental lady next to him. I said, wow, she was the one who helped him. But as I go along, and my late wife, Rena, before I was going to the hotel, she said, Lucian, I need you to do me a favor. I said, what? She said, you know the man, I just go and do the laundry part-time. They need somebody to work for the weekend to do serving. And that time, that mayor was Mayor Dinkin, the first black mayor in New York. I didn't have no idea who was going to be there. But when I get there, I saw Mayor Dinkin, and he had his bodyguards, Mr. Lewis and his other people around him, Butch Miley and another one named John Pierre. So that weekend, when it was a weekend of tennis, I finished serving them the weekend, and I get a message saying Mr. Lewis wants me for the whole summer when he brought his family from Paris. I said, what? How am I going to do this now? I have got a job. And I said, anyway. The mind come back to me, this is the same man I see on TV, on CNN. When I said, I wonder if he don't need one man to serve food from the kitchen to the dining table for him. And who tell you, 2 years later when I said that, it did happen. So be careful what you wish for and what you want in life. And I only hope when you get it, you realize that's what you asked for. Because some of us make promise and make commitment and wishes, and we turn them down. And we didn't realize that's what we was begging for. On the other hand, to move to Broadway, that's where I met Mr. Lewis the first time. And he called me in to arrange for his board meeting setup, where he's going to set up the round table where all the executives are going to meet and all the stockholders. And he tell me to tell them what we need and he will buy them. And I did give, I think it was John Pierre, I gave him the list of things that he needed to get. And everything was there, and the next 2 weeks was the board meeting. I had to set up the coffee first and the Danish, and then put all the water glass around each name plate. Then he said to me, okay, when you finish, you just sit back there by my secretary. I sit there, and I walked back up now to check to see if everything was going fine. I walked by him, and this one of the men who had the most stock in his company. And I didn't say good morning to him. And he said nothing, he didn't mention anything. And he came back screaming, just like how his one said he will. And that's what he was doing, screaming. Nobody don't know who he's screaming at. But his secretary Deidre said, Lucian, Mr. Lewis want to see you in his office. I said, I wonder what I do now. So I get in the office, he closed the door behind me. He said, how dare you to meet me with my peer and you didn't say good morning? I said, Mr. Lewis? He said, yes. You told me I'm supposed to be seen and not heard. Okay? And I said, I know the gentleman you were speaking to. I would have been out to my place to say good morning to you because I know this is the man that have the most money in your company. Because you would have had a right to yell at me. I say you're supposed to be seen and not heard. And he never said another word. So when I come out of the office, his secretary, his accountant, his driver, what did you tell Mr. Lewis? He never heard nobody go in the office when he's screaming and don't hear what's going on in the office. So they want to know what I tell him. I tell him what he teach me, to be seen and not heard. And they said the first person ever went in his office and nobody could hear what's going on. So we walked that way and then we went back to 22nd Street, where he had his townhouse. To get dressed, he changed, he said, we're going to the Hampton. Tell the driver to go over on the other side, he's gonna do the driving. Behold, Mr. Lewis went down a one-way street. And he told the driver, don't do what you see me do. We went about, when we get on Long Island Expressway, he took a wrong exit. And the driver sitting with Mr. Lewis and would not say he go in the wrong direction. And I said, no, I can't let this happen. I want to hear him scream today. So I said, Mr. Lewis, I think you take the wrong exit. He said, really? I said, I think you're going back to the Bronx. I said, the exit where you take is the wrong exit because you're supposed to be taking Grand Central Parkway to Northern State. And I say, you take Northern Boulevard exit. So when we get to the Hampton, the driver said, you lucky, you're all right. I said, why? I said, you sitting with the man and letting him go in the wrong direction? I said to myself, now I see why Mr. Lewis scream at you all, because I do things wrong and do not try to correct it. It was another time when I sit with Mr. Lewis in 834 when he just bought 834. Now before he bought 834, he asked me like for solving, what do he need for solving people? I said, Mr. Lewis, the dishes that you have is only for you and your family. You need to get 24, everything because you like to entertain. And when we reach 834 Fifth Avenue, this is the building Mrs. Lewis talked about. From the smallest glass you in a bar to the tallest one, it was 24. From the smallest plate to the biggest one, it was 24. Didn't have the slightest idea that's what he was talking to me about, solving. And also, the silverwares was 24 of each. And you go from, I don't need to call all the names of them, but you go from the fish fork, the dessert fork, the salad fork, the dinner fork, they all was 24. I was happy when I walk in and I see that and I said, oh, Mr. Lewis was paying attention to what I asked him to do. So you see, it's not because you are a smaller person to what you think you are. The boss listened. When Mr. Lewis passed, before he passed, right, he took me up, the chef sent me up to take something to his room. It was his sister, his aunt and his two brothers. He said, don't go sit there. I want to know why he want me sit with his aunt and his two brothers. He said, I want you to keep the standard of this family. And I want you to go along with the building rules. I had no idea that was going to be the last time he was talking to me. Okay? When he passed the next 2 weeks, I said, now I see what he was talking about. It was his last time he was speaking to me about being around his family and take care of his family. And I dedicate myself to doing that. Nicolas, we took Harvard, Christina to Harvard, and Mrs. Lewis to Harvard. And bring them back. I know most of you know about going to college, where you have to move from one dorm to the next each semester. And the next semester you're going back, you're going to a different room. All that I had to do in the name of Mr. Lewis and his family. Now I work for his wife from ever since. If you want a boss and you want a good boss, you're looking at her right here. With Mrs. Lewis, what I was impressed with when Mr. Lewis passed, she was very busy trying to get the business under control. I think her brother was running the business at that time, but she was always busy between in the house, the office, and meeting all over the place. And she will always come and say if everything is all right. And you want to talk to Mrs. Lewis, whenever it is, you can walk up to Mrs. Lewis and say, Mrs. Lewis, I need to speak to you for a few minutes. Okay, come, sit down. We don't have much boss who have time for that. Most boss always have you talk to somebody below them. And when you have a boss that speak direct to you, it gives you different feeling inside that they respect you and they understand you. Mr. Lewis used to do the same thing to me. He will talk. I could say, Mr. Lewis, I need to speak to you. He will say, give me a half an hour. But it's nothing when you're working on one-on-one, like I work with Mrs. Lewis, her daughters, and Mr. Lewis. Because like working in the hotel, you have literally head waiter, captain, food and beverage manager, and then all those managers above you. You never get to be direct one-on-one. So it's big to me to be close to the family because it's a good feeling when you know your boss said do this, nobody to tell you change it. Especially Mr. Lewis, oh my God. If Mr. Lewis said move that chair, put it over there, nobody could come and tell you why you move that chair over there. If they say that, all you have to say, Mr. Lewis said, put it over there. And conversation finished. That's what I like about him. And another thing I learned from him is when the two of us alone in the house, he will say to me, I expect 4 phone calls. And he gives you the names of those phone calls. As much as Mrs. Lewis is in Paris, his mother is in Baltimore, and his daughter is in Harvard. Their name is not on the list, don't send the phone call. You take a message. And when he come, he know every time the phone ring. Any message from me? And then you give him the message book. You don't dare send a phone call up to him if there wasn't on the list. Just like how young lady over there said, you will hear the different language name. Okay? It's like some of the famous word I know you say, you dumbass. Them kind of thing. And to me, that's why I have respect him for one board meeting I set up for, and I was sitting in the back. I hear him raising hell with this man second to him and one of his lawyers. And I said, wow, this guy helping keep money in his pocket and he talk to them like that? I said, well, then he could walk on my foot and I don't have a thing to say. Because I only bring in the food from the kitchen to the dining room. And setting up his board meeting. So it was very pleasing to me to work for Mr. Lewis, and more pleasure working with his wife.
Thank you. There you have it. Things that I have not heard before. Thank you. Big hand again for us. So, and another big hand for Diana Lee. We have a few minutes. I would like to open it to the floor for open forum. I want to introduce you to my niece, Laura. She is my own assistant. Could you just see who will ask questions? Okay, I think somebody else.
Yeah, since this can't go all the way back, just like come forward. Yeah.
Your name first,
My name is Britt Dixon
and introduce yourself.
from Los Angeles, California. My mentor, Reggie Van Lee, respects and admires Mrs. Lewis and a few other people in the room. I'm honored to be here as an extension of him today. My background is the entertainment business. I grew up as a classically trained dancer, but I spent the last 2 years working at Creative Artists Agency, which is the world's largest sports and entertainment agency. My question is, definitely the book of Mr. Lewis's book was one of my inspirations before I started working on the corporate side of entertainment, like way, way, way before, as most people, most African Americans are. My question is, something that I found out when doing research was that before Mr. Lewis passed away, he was speaking with Mr. Milken about wanting to buy Paramount Studios. And his interest in buying Paramount Studios was that he was not pleased with the representation of African Americans or people of color in the entertainment business. And Mr. Milken he was sure that had Mr. Lewis purchased Paramount Studios, that the entertainment business would have been a completely different business today. So my question for anyone who might have any information or anyone who has any feedback is, what do you think his vision would have been, and how do you think the entertainment business would have been today, being that Paramount Pictures today is the most talked about merger, buyout of any studio in our current entertainment business?
Thank you, Britt. He was in the process of taking a bid by Paramount. What would have been probably what is happening now with the biggest producer of black films? Please.
Charles King.
Charles King is Metro. By the way, for all of you who do not know, Charles King and Metro I have signed a contract for them to make the film of Mr. Lewis. Why should white guys support it? Huh? Macro, sorry. It's Macro, not Metro. Yes, thank you. Because when he was growing up, he knew from his brother, uncles and aunts, 9 uncles and aunts, and his grandfather was a head waiter in a private club. His grandmother would clean white people's homes. So he would hear it, how all the white people have the good jobs, have the homes that black people were objected to. They could not come and buy in any restricted family. So that's why he said, why? Why should white guys have all the fun? And so knowing that in the movie business, it's always, no person of color. So in your question, I think he would definitely make pictures like Charles King and like who did Perry? Tyler Perry, something like that. Thank you. Please bring a hand for the former editor of Essence.
Most often when our men marry outside of our race, as African Americans, we lose the families. It's been so extraordinary, Loida, to watch you over the years embrace African Americans as though we are one of you, and we are. We didn't lose Reginald Lewis. We didn't lose your children. You embraced African Americans in a unique and very profound and very clear way. Here we are. here we are in a museum built, and here you speak about your mother in love, all the many years when, she was alive, was really beautiful. But I came to ask this question. We want to hear about how you stepped into the business and how you took it and elevated it. Because you were not that involved in the building of it, or were you? I don't know that part of the story. So tell us how you took that business, what you did with it, how you learned what you needed to know to grow it and move it forward and really elevate it to heights that I don't know if Reggie, who I knew, would even imagine it could reach.
Thank you. Big hand, please, for Susan Jensen. Well, I must confess that before we came here, I called Susan last minute. Susan, I decided, since two people who knew Mr. Lewis will be here, to have a fireside chat, Oprah Winfrey style. Can you be Oprah Winfrey? And she said, Loida, the best person to do the interviews would be you. I never thought of it. And so I said, thank you. Please give her a big hand for giving my idea. So the question is, how did I take over? Well, as you all know, or maybe you didn't know from the film, that when he died, I was really totally a basket case. Because the biopsy, December 31, confirmed what we all suspected and what the doctors have suspected, brain cancer. And when he asked, is there any cure? There will be no cure. What about chemotherapy and radiation? It will only lengthen your life. And so he decided no chemotherapy, no radiation, he will fight it through. And so in 19 days, January 19, he died. So for me, it was like, what? I mean, it was like the sun started to shine. I lost the sun. It was darkness. And I had to take really control of myself because it was the last thing I expected. I had expected that we would grow old together, that we will enjoy our grandchildren together. And so it just happened so fast. And so there was nothing else in my mind. I even forgot to tell Christina, who was at home, and she's very resentful, that I didn't call her father had died. There was just really darkness. But I am so glad I am Christian, I'm Catholic. I never lost faith in God. I never said, why God me? Why me, God? Because I know that in my darkest of night, God will be there to help me. So it's almost like, Lord, help me, be with me. And I love Isaiah's phrase, a mother may forget the baby on her breast, but I will not forget you. And also, I have carved you in the palm of my hand. So during those darkest nights, that was my inspiration. And so it's almost like God lifted me up. And in 6 months, I was able to walk. What does that mean? Meaning to say, I was able to get myself together and to find, what do I have? So for all of you who have problems, have faith. God is there to enlighten your mind. First, I have 2 daughters. I will be mother and father to them. So we continued with the policy that I had with Mr. Lewis. 2 things. Do your work. They're not working, but their work is to study. So study. Continue to study. So I'm so glad both of them graduated from Harvard cum laude. Next. Mr. Lewis was in the process of finishing his book. Why? Because when I was writing my book in Paris, I was learning finally how to do the computer, and Mr. Lewis would be dressing up in the bathroom, and I'm typing. And as soon as he's ready, I'd stand up, see him to the door, bye darling, have a good day, and then go back typing. But one of those days, I was just so intent on writing my book on how to get a green card, he stopped and said, oh, I'm jealous, you're writing a book. I said, darling, you have a book to write, your own life story. And that's when he started writing. So when he died, it was not finished. So I was able to find Blair Walker to finish the book. And that's what you have downstairs. Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? And it became a bestseller in Business Week. So that's number 2. Number 3, the company, Beatrice International, was floundering. And he had, when he knew that something was wrong, he asked his brother-in-law to be his vice chair. So immediately when he died, he became chair. But you know, sometimes he was a very good vice chair, a very good number 2. But sometimes when a person becomes number 1, he doesn't know what to do. So the company was floundering. 1993, 1994 was the worst recession in Europe. 1994 summer was the worst rainy summer in Europe, and half of the business of Beatrice was ice cream. It rained in Spain, and Germany, and Italy, and France, and Canary Islands, and all the northern. So, totally, after 1994, the company was close to bankruptcy. And so, in my mind, it can't be. This was his life. His term paper at Harvard Law School, and by the way, there are two Harvard Law graduates in 1981 who are good friends of mine, Bruce Cohen and Dilsa Santiago. Where are they? From Harvard. Yes, thank you. I just want to call on Mr. Lewis is a Kappa man, Kappa Alpha Psi. Can I have the Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity brothers to stand up, please? Thank you. And so, I cannot let the business fail. That was his life. And we paid a lot of money for Spencer Stewart to send us potential CEOs. So we interviewed 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 5. 4 white men and 1 Puerto Rican man. I have nothing against people of, white men, because it's a big company. Nobody very few, if any, were on the list of potential CEOs. But when I asked them, will you make it successful? All of them said, we'll try our best, try our best, try our best. Try your best, what if it fails, in my mind? Then I'll say, why did you do it? So I said, 3 fingers are pointing at me. I better take over. Because if it fails, I don't have to blame anybody but myself. So for all of those who have opportunities, take the opportunity because it may never come. And take responsibility for yourself. And that's what I did. So for your question, why did I take over? So that I will have responsibility to continue and finish Mr. Lewis' work. Thank you.
So one of the things that I know from you is that you love Reginald Lewis. And for me, it's the greatest love of all. And I know that it's hard, but to uphold his legacy in the way that you've done it is incredible. And to me, it takes a strong person with God's love and guidance, your strong point, your cornerstone, to continue to live and to give us everything that you have because of this great love that you have for your husband. Can you share your secrets of how you are able to smile and have so much love that you give to all of us? Because I met you years ago and you reach out and you became an inspiration. So there's something so special about you, and we all love you because of it. So I don't know if there's anything that you can share on how you were able to kind of channel all of the challenges that you've had over the years to continue the way that you do.
Just give your Druda.
Oh, sorry.
Vivier. So she introduce yourself.
Sure, I'm sorry. Journey to Vivier. I am producing a documentary about African Americans on Wall Street, and I had the pleasure of interviewing Loida Lewis, and I caught from that moment of interviewing her how great and how deep that love is that we all cherish today.
Thank you very much. All right. First, why did I fall in love with Reginald Lewis? Because I grew up in the Philippines, as you can see from my accent. I was at the University of the Philippines, what we consider the Harvard. Harvard is the UP, University of the Philippines of the United States. Anyway, it's the best for me university in the Philippines because we have several presidents of the Philippines graduate of Harvard Law School. Of UP Law School. And so in my class, we were around 10 women, 50 men. They are all good. One became vice president of the Philippines. Another became not a classmate, but a colleague, 2 years younger, Senate President of the Philippines, Secretary of, another one became Secretary of Natural Resources, education. In other words, I was with the best of the best. But in my mind, because I'm such a strong woman, I can handpick all of them. So I was never going to get married. I don't want to wear the pants in the family. I was going to be like Helena Benitez, another woman, head of a university, became Department of Social Welfare, and all the way to Senate. So in my mind, that's what I'm going to be. But when I came to the United States and met Mr. Lewis on a blind date, he was different. Different in what sense? That you can see I'm type A. He's triple A. I am driven, more driven. I'm ambitious, more ambitious. And most of all, he loved me. So, with all of that, I knew that I can be the woman and he will be the man. And so during our first years of marriage, I must tell you, it was hard with all of the SHIT and SO and all of that thing, in my ears when he's angry. I even called my mom, my mother-in-law, Mrs. Fugit, to say, Mom, I can't stand it. I'm going to leave. Really, I did. I was at that point. And I just love her because she said, Loida, I know how you feel. But just go to the toilet, spit on it, and flush it. You'll feel better. Really, it did. In other words, I had somebody to call on. And I knew also that Mr. Lewis is father and mother separated. The mother left his father when he was 5. And why? And for whatever reason. Yes. He did ask one of his aunts, why did my mother leave my father? Because he was not ambitious enough. So from a young mind, he said, my woman will never leave me because I'm not ambitious enough. So that's aside. But having known that, it slowly dawned on me because in the first party I attended with his friends and somebody asked me to dance, so I danced. And when I came home, oh my God, I got it. He was so jealous. It was not even in the mind about this. So I knew in my mind he will always behind his mind that I might leave him. So at the beginning, I also told him, darling, I'll give you 110%. If that is not good enough for you, you can walk out the door. I can take care of myself because I will never leave you. So whenever we have a party, not dancing with anybody else, just him, looking at him. Because that's the truth, I don't care anyway for anyone. So, the question, why do you love him and why do you continue to love him? Because that's why when I left him, okay, I have to say this too. So, the first date was rough because he started that. Okay. I did not know that when a man on a date invites you to go to his apartment, it means something else. So when he said, would you like to see the watercolor of this friend I met in my trip to Europe? Of course, go to his apartment. And in his apartment, there's just a love seat. So you're close to each other. And then he started to make advances and I responded. But because I responded, he thought that means something else. So he carried me and was going to bring me to bed. And I said, what? No, 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 no. And the gentleman that he is, no, that nothing happened. And so when I reached home at the hotel, wrote him a letter. I never want to see you again. I will only be intimate with the man who will be my husband. That was it. 1 week later, he called me up. He said, oh no, he didn't receive my letter. So we went out again. We had a good time. Meaning we enjoyed each other's company. He brought me back to the hotel. And as he was close to before I went into the door, I said, you know, I wrote you a letter. Yes. What? You received my letter? Yes. I told you, I don't want to see you again. And then he said, smart as he is, Loida, I'll never do anything you don't want me to do. He's right, okay? So we continued to see each other again. By December, he invited me to go to the Empire State Building because on the ground floor was Count Basie, big, okay? So when we were there, we were dancing. I said, no, I don't think we should continue seeing each other again. And he said, why? Because I'm falling in love with you. You may be falling in love with me, but I'll break my heart and I'll break your heart because I'm going back to the Philippines. And then he said, how do you know? That's right, how do I know? So he knew exactly how to. And then finally, around April, we were together, he was bringing me to the hotel, and we were close, we're becoming intimate. What else? So I asked him the question, there was nobody in the subway. Darling, do you want a big wedding or small wedding? He answered, a small wedding. Where do you want it to be? NYU, they have a small chapel. And then suddenly he understood what was happening. I have a headache. I proposed, not him. But after 1 month, around June, Melly has graduated, finished her master's at Columbia. I have second thoughts. Because what does it mean? Leaving my family, leaving my friends, leaving my ambition, leaving my country. So I told him, I can't go through with it, darling. I'm going back home. And I didn't know that he called his mother at that time. And his mother called the hotel, but we had then left. But just on the plane, knowing that I will never meet a man like him again, I was so sad. And when we reached Stanford in California, because our friends were taking PhD and Masters of Arts, I was not talking to anybody. And the song, you see everything gray, that's true. I could not see the colors, nothing. And at that evening, I was in Jerry Hill's school apartment, and Lenny was with Jimmy Ong. We were on budget. Jerry Hill and I will always be dear to me. Jerry Hill said, Loida, if you're that sad, why don't you call him? Never thought of it. ring, messages. And then when he answered, he said, darling, I'm coming back. All right, so that's the love story. So, that means to say, from that time on, I never looked back. And why? Why do I love him so much? Because he has gone through. It's only by being in the United States. I always consider myself original, and everybody else is foreign in the United States. They are the foreigners, I'm the native. And when I see what kind of discrimination, bigotry, put-downs, and all that people receive, people of color receive, and my husband, with the height that he has received, a taxi driver would still pass by him, and so in other words, people judge you by the color of your skin. And even me, the only time that I had a moment of discrimination was in the supermarket. Maybe I was not thinking or I was not really looking, so I was just, putting my things down to be checked out. And this white woman behind me said, you chink. You mean me? I mean, it was like, what? You know, just because I look chinky eyes doesn't know I'm a law graduate. I passed the bar first time. I'm cum laude. I'm valedictorian. I speak 3 languages. Because of the color of my all you can see is chink. So that's the tiny bit of discrimination that I received. But how much more my husband? How much more his people? So, not only because I love him, but because I understood the agony and the troubles and the hurdles of him and his people. Why could I not be there to help him? So your question, why did you accept his? Because they are my family. It's not like because he's black, I'm Filipino, that he's dead and he don't know. No, I am his wife. His people are my people. And I understood what Ruth told his mother, Naomi, your people will be my people, and that's what happened. And that's why they are my family. You are my family. It will never be something between us. Thank you.
I just want to say one thing. That's why you guys should get her book, because it has many stories like that.
The Loida Lewis Podcast, hosted by Loida Lewis, is produced by the creators of Over a Glass or Two, Jesse and JV, executive produced by Laura Nicolas Olace. Rate and review us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts for a chance to be featured on a future episode. Have a question for Miss Loida? Just email us on askloidalewis@gmail.com. Your question might make its way to a future episode. Subscribe on all major platforms to never miss a beat. Thank you for listening to the Loida Lewis Podcast. Let's live, love, laugh, and learn together